it's Greg Nelson here in the Clinch, where we tackle and grapple everything martial arts. Hey, I want to give a few shout outs first to Zebra Mats, zebramats.com, right? ThaiBoxing.com for the WTBA, PedroSauer.com, and EricPaulson.com. That's where we get most of our knowledge right there. Also, theacademymn.com, theacademymn.com. Right? So what today we're going to go after is training and kind of the life of a high-performance martial artist. So we're going to get after it.
Yeah, so basically we wanted to look at, last time we looked at high-performance coaching, and today we want to look at what it takes to be a high-level athlete, you know, specifically in martial arts, but maybe also in other genres as well. So to begin with, as usual, like, how do you guys define a high-performance athlete? Like, in my view, you get that moniker based on your results. As soon as you have the achievement, you know, that's how you earn, you know, the high performance level or elite level athlete or fighter.
Yeah, I think that's somewhat true, but then you got guys like Laird Hamilton, who kind of forego competition, but became the giant wave killer, and everybody knows him as the greatest surfer in the world, but he was like, nah, just not into the competition. I'm into conquering the wave.
So he has results in that
yes
specific niche.
Well, he's kind of doing something that
he's doing something
haven't
that's unbelievable,
done
right?
to that level, though, right?
And I think that with a high-level athlete, you know, there can be, obviously the results are important, but there's also things like I was just showing Nat yesterday about Joe Russell, who was the probably best high school wrestler ever, right? Mm-hmm. And then he got a motorcycle accident and brain damage. I mean, literally lost like a quarter cup of brain, and he had to relearn how to walk. But he was still honored his scholarship by Jay Robinson, and he never wrestled. He never wrestled varsity, but he became the team captain because of how much output and how much push he had, and he just kept driving and grinding, and he becomes the assistant coach for many years, and then he becomes the head coach at George Mason University, and then Billy Zadek, who's the coach of the Olympic team, said, will you move out to Colorado Springs and help coach our Olympic team? And because it was his output, his work ethic, the people saw what he had, and just that the ability to give, and take that level, you know, think about what he was, and then falling down to being able to not do anything, and then building yourself up, and people seeing that effort and that output and that ability.
He was able to build other people up too.
Yes.
So you have results there too.
And so, I mean, I think a big part of the high level athlete or a high level martial artist is that person who is somewhat obsessed with it and just trains and trains and tries to push themselves to their absolute limit, and tries to, you know, absolutely tap out everything that they've been given in their body, and just try to, hey, I want to see how high we can take this. And obviously, you know, if there's a competitive sport that they could go to, that would be great. You know, so Thai boxing, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, wrestling, or whatever. That's combat sports, or judo. And if you can bring it up to that highest level, man, yeah, then you're known as a high-level performer.
We were talking about that last night, like that motivation. There's just like a passion there, and you're so fired up to always do it that you're just motivated intrinsically.
Yeah.
And that's a thing that's, some people have a really hard time finding that.
Yeah.
But if you get hooked on it.
Well, I mean, like, listen, one of the things that people are always saying, and, you know, sometimes an excuse and sometimes it's a reality, but, you know, athleticism and your natural gifts, your talent, you know, versus your inner, you know, motivation and your inner qualities. It's clear that if you win the genetic lottery and you have some serious athletic talent, you know, you have the body, you have the muscles to perform in that different sport. Everybody probably has some level of athletic ability for some sports.
Yeah.
You know, they just got to find the one that's right for their body type, I guess. But
How many people have we seen
what,
that are
what do you guys think about?
unbelievable?
Yeah, I mean, what do you guys think about that?
And-
People are
yeah.
saying, "Well, I'm not that person," or "That person has this," because it can quickly turn into an excuse that limits their potential, right?
Yeah, and I think the biggest thing is, like I tapped on before, whatever you're have been blessed with, and those things that you haven't been, you have this willingness to keep working and trying to develop them to their highest level, regardless of, you know, what the outcome might be. Think about when we started the martial arts and we were training like madmen. There was no competition, though.
Mm-hmm.
There was no Thai boxing yet. There was no MMA.
Well, that
we
goes
just
back
loved
to
it.
that fire.
We,
It's already there.
and it was more than even a passion, though. It was like you have a positive obsession with it. You think about it. It's in your head. You're writing it down. You're focusing on what we got to do. Then when you get there, then when you leave, you're still like, thinking about it. I mean, there's like you're obsessed a little bit with it, and you're driven. And there's something intrinsic in there, but you have that ability to at least want to always push whatever you can to be the best you can. And with that, we've had people that have been really fast, but then maybe they're not so strong. But then because they have a certain drive, they start to, okay, I got to get stronger. I got to lift weights. I got to do something to even that out a little bit.
Yeah.
And so they look at where they're weak, and they don't look at it like, oh, I don't want to do that because I'm weak there. They look at it, I'm weak there. I got to do it more. I got to build it up. And that, I think, makes a high-performance athlete, someone that is going to be able to perform, because they look at a weakness as a challenge to build.
Yeah, yeah. But I mean, like in the NFL, or take the NBA, like, height.
Yeah.
There's a certain amount of height. If you're gonna do wrestling, a certain amount of speed.
Yeah.
Like there's a certain level of nature that does need to be there. But I think to be
a champion,
and to be high level, and it's just important that you don't use that as an excuse when you don't get good results. Well, I wasn't whatever it is enough.
If that passion's there, you don't have to be a champion. You love it no matter what.
But there's another guy that he's now wrestling for Wyoming. And he was, again, 4-time Nebraska state champion. Gets in a car crash, loses his leg. I mean, he has from the hip down. And so they said, well, we're going to honor your scholarship, man. And he's wrestling for Wyoming. He's not like he's winning right now, but he's out there. He won a college match.
Mm-hmm.
And he literally just started wrestling with one leg in less than a year.
Mm-hmm.
And to actually be able to win a single college match, it's a little different than Anthony Robles, who was actually born with only one leg.
Oh, he was born with that?
Yeah.
It's unbelievable.
And so he, has been able to adapt to that his whole life. But all of a sudden, you lose your leg, and a few months later, or like half a year later, you're trying to wrestle, and then you actually win a match.
That's a positive attitude.
It's unbelievable.
Sports like MMA and wrestling and probably certain positions of football, there's a certain amount of athletic talent that's you got to be fast, you got to have endurance, you got to be strong, you got to be flexible, you got to be coordinated. But they also, because you have to have all those things, you have to have this mental side that's really probably the key for everyone. And so let's talk about that. Like, what's the role of the mind and people's, I guess, awareness or their attitude towards life that separates elite athletes from everybody else?
I definitely think when you have there's more of an optimistic attitude in your life. All right, you're able to see things in a positive manner.
You choose.
You choose, and that's the thing. It's you have the ability to choose your state of mind.
Yeah.
And that's
the foundation.
That's the foundation. And some people, they get overwhelmed by negative thoughts, and then they let it, take them over. Whereas other people are like, forget that. They look at it like, that's like somebody who's trying to fight me. I'm going to fight them back. And they fight them back with positive affirmations or positive thoughts, whatever.
That's a skill, just like
yes, exactly right.
Working takedowns or whatever. You recognize a negative thought and be able to turn it around. It's a difficult thing.
We were watching Nate Carr, and he was talking about that last night. And he says, "Hey, listen, you don't, negative thoughts aren't something that are invited in. They just come crashing through
Yeah.
your door, and then you got to fight them out.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, reality. And, when you're getting tired and you start thinking to yourself, man, I'm tired. Well, yeah, you're gonna
Mhm.
go down. That's it, right?
Yeah.
Or if you're tired and you look at it in a different manner, and sometimes I can remember this personally when I'd feel that fatigue, I would get like mad. I'd be
Yeah.
like, well, screw that, and I'd start
Yeah.
kicking harder and start to go faster, see if I could beat that thing. And you're gonna be tired, but you almost there's a weird, I don't know, love-hate relationship with that fatigue where you're just like you
Yeah.
hate it, but
Mhm.
you love to push it. You want to go beyond it. You want to break it. And sometimes you push too hard and something happens, but there's something in there that makes you want to fight it. And there's a positive mentality like I can beat this thing. I'm gonna just keep going if I train harder every day. And I think that attitude is huge because
You realize the negative thoughts just are so limiting. If you're fighting or it's like whatever sport you're playing, it's
And
just
And I think that when you compete, you have to war those more
Oh,
than because
they
on
come
that day of
crowding in.
competition, it's like
Yeah.
you're thinking about all these things.
Fear
And
and
what if this
anxiety.
happened? This
Yeah.
goes on, and you have to like you said, like you have to drill positive mentality, just like you're drilling kicks, just like you're drilling takedowns. Just like because if you don't, they can take you over. And
well,
I
let
think
all
that
that
makes
go,
a
and then
difference.
the day of the match, you're like, oh yeah,
Yeah.
here they come,
Mhm.
here come
And
these thoughts.
we've had our own competitors that in the gym, unbelievable.
Mhm.
Awesome, and then they fight and they just fall apart. They just can't deal with the anxiety. They can't
Yeah.
deal with the pressure of it all, and all of a sudden, it doesn't work out. And you have people the other way. They don't look so great in the gym, but something happens when they under the lights, and
Yeah.
they just become. It's like, where did this come from?
Yeah,
They don't
positive.
pressure. Maybe they don't pressure themselves, and when they're not pressuring themselves in here,
Comes out.
and then they put maybe a little bit of pressure on themselves in competition, but it's the right balance because
Yeah.
if you
Yeah.
don't have,
You need it.
you need a little bit of fear and a little bit of anxiety to
Yeah.
keep you tuned in because
Yeah.
you probably all had those times when you're kind of sleeping out there
Yeah.
and you need to kind of wake up. But
Oh, I
So-
remember. This is a great example. Of, I think it was in Chicago, and you were grappling in that thing, and you were just like nonchalant out there, and I'm like, "Come on, you gotta go like it's a fight." And all of a sudden you turned it up and went after the guy, and I think you had a submission because he was beating you with points, but you're like, God, it's so much harder to get motivated because I'm not getting punched and kicked and kneed in the face.
It's a different level of worry there, I guess.
Yeah.
yeah. So I think a lot of people believe that elite level athletes, like one of the things that separates them is this level of self-awareness. They're more aware of where they're not good and where they are good, and what they need to work on and what they don't need to work on, and mentally and physically and emotionally. So on that note, like one of the big things that I've seen in people that are high performers is they're super internally motivated. They don't care about what people think about them. They don't care about money. They don't care about getting things. They have this intense internal passion. You guys got any good stories about that or any comments on that? Like,
I mean, our lives are common on that because
All of us have been
we did not get anything
just broke.
for years. So we just
You
went.
know, living on ramen noodles. or
Yeah,
whatever.
but we trained and we pushed, we went nuts with it, and it was because that's what we loved to do. I mean, we absolutely loved it. And think about a lot of sports out there: wrestling, judo, these competitive sports where you get the highest level and you get a gold medal. And it wasn't until maybe a couple of Olympics ago that they said, "Well, if you get a gold medal, we're going to pay you now." These guys have had to get extra jobs. They couldn't do all this stuff because there was no stipends for them. But they did it because they loved it, because they wanted that medal. They wanted to win that tournament. It's like a classic example is this too at the beginning of MMA, when Sean Shirk fought the first time. We had that 8-man tournament down in Iowa, He paid $85 to enter it, and then we drove down there and paid for the hotel to fight in an 8-man tournament because he wanted to win that tournament. And that's all it was. You didn't make any money. In fact, it cost money to go fight back then, but it was about winning that tournament and proving to yourself that you could be the top guy. And that's how he battled it all the way up until, I mean, he actually left the sport because there was no money in it. And that's when the Tough Show started. And all of a sudden, more notoriety and more money got into it. And then he came back.
Yeah.
His second run is where he actually made
How
money.
many years did he do it just because he just loved it, though?
Almost the majority of it. I mean, and
Yeah.
it was a big part of it was like, he just wanted to, he even talked about it, he said, watch Royce Gracie win that fight. And he goes, I want to do that. I want to be like that.
What were those fights in that basement of that house?
Oh, yeah, it was cold house fights. And that was Dave Manet. I mean, Henry Matamoros. There's a lot. I mean, a lot of the old fighters back in who started were in this cold house because they were going to have it in this like somewhat kind of barn, but it caught on fire.
I have some of the videos. Maybe I'll put them on YouTube later.
Yeah,
Sweet.
it caught on fire. And
Was Shirk fighting in there too?
Well, the building that they were supposed to fight, no, he wasn't. But there's building they were supposed to fight and caught on fire. So they go, well, we got to do it somewhere else. So they found an abandoned house. And they had full-out MMA fights on the carpet in the bottom of the house. And that's where a lot of those guys got their start. And I said, how'd you do? Oh, good. I did pretty good. I won that fight. And I remember driving to Evanston, Illinois for the first hook and shoots.
Yeah.
Didn't get paid anything. And it was just like, we're in not even in a ring. There's a wall, 2 corners of the wall, and then some chairs, and you just fought in it, and there was a ref, and it was crazy because there was headbutts were legal, and it was truly no holds barred. And there's multiple fights in a single day. I mean, that's all we knew of back then. It was
clearly
like 8-man tournaments.
That's a passion and fire to do something that you love. You know, I mean, no money.
Think of Travis Fulton. What's he got, like almost 260 fights?
Maybe more. Yeah.
Maybe more. He never really got paid very much for any of those. He just, hey, that's what I do. I fight.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, even now, probably people that are really successful in combat sports are, they get money, but you guarantee that the people at the top are motivated to see how hard and how good they can be. How many people can they beat? How many cool moves can they do? How many
let's think about
like
competitive jiu-jitsu.
Mm-hmm.
You're not getting paid until when? Maybe you get on something like Metamoris or something like that.
Not anymore.
Not anymore, but when it was. Or EB5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, whatever one you get on, hopefully you win it and get paid. But if you don't...
Even then, is it really that much money?
I mean, it's like $50,000, but if you don't win it, what do you get?
Professional grappling as a sport is still very close to MMA in the early days.
What about Thai boxing? How much money those guys get paid?
Yeah.
Not until they get up
much.
where? Until somewhere in big giant K1 fight in Japan.
Mm-hmm.
Best guys are just,
So
not
it's
not
truly
really getting paid what they're worth. That's
you're
for sure.
you're truly like when you're doing something like Thai boxing or judo or wrestling, where there's no real like boxing, you could eventually be making millions and millions of dollars.
Yeah.
MMA, you could potentially be making millions of dollars.
Yeah.
But in those other sports, that's not there now.
Yeah.
Not at all. Not even close. It's just truly driven by the heart and intrinsic
Especially Thai boxing.
nature.
I mean,
Yeah. Well, I mean,
for stand-up.
yeah, because you're just getting beat down.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you gotta love it. You better love it.
Oh, yeah.
Well, you mentioned Shirk, and one of the things that I remember about Shirk is like he saw himself. He believed, and I believed in him. We all believed in
Confidence.
him. He saw himself as the champion.
Yep.
Yeah.
There was no doubt that's what was going to happen. And I think when you think about elite performers in general, they already know it's the belief is so strong, the faith is so strong in what they're going to do. That is just a defining characteristic of those individuals. Like,
It's real. It's a quiet confidence, and it's not fake.
Yeah, I remember
That's what
talking
I
to
remember.
him, and I said, Sean, you're like a 4-stripe white belt. You want to test for your blue belt? And he goes, nope. The only belt I want is gold. And that's it. So he was the toughest 4-stripe white belt in the world. I mean, still is. And because he did jiu-jitsu because it was a vehicle to help him get to that gold belt for the UFC.
Yeah.
Right? He did all the striking, all the, everything he did.
But
I mean-
people are afraid to set goals like that are super ambitious, right? Because I think there's a fear of like failure that holds people back. That's one of the biggest,
Yeah.
things that stops people from reaching where they could potentially be, right?
I think you're right.
Yeah, you do that, but the guys I think that really develop that high level, they not only have a goal, but they attach their character of who they are to that goal. And they vocally say it. Like Sean was like, I'm going to be the UFC champion. I'm going to win that belt. And that was the character that so if he failed,
So
that would have been
attitude.
him
It
failing.
started with the attitude.
Yeah, but he was like, no, he tied his whole being to it. It's like anybody, if you say, I'm a Thai boxer.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I do. I'm a fighter. Well, then if you don't fight hard, sorry. People look at it like, so you have to become that character. You have to really become it. I'll tell you this, I learned that in gymnastics. We're like, at the beginning of the year that we won the state tournament, everyone just killed it. But our coach was so like, hey, we are going to win this state tournament this year. And if we don't, we're going to be so conditioned, we're going to be able to beat the crap out of the team that does. And that's all there is to it. You guys are going to condition, and we're going to do stuff above and beyond normal. And we'd come in the morning, we'd come in at night. He pushed us. But every day it's like, he'd sit us down, and he goes, okay, I want you to see yourself doing that championship routine at the state tournament right now. And I want you to see your score. What's your score?
Yeah.
And he make us think about it. And it was like huge. And I
That's
never.
another super common thing amongst high level elite athletes is the amount of time they spend positive, mental visualization and imagery.
Yeah.
They spend a lot of time picturing what they're going to do, exactly how they're going to do it, over and over and over again. We had Kayla Harrison was here in town, gave a seminar, and she mentioned that for years, every night before she went to bed, she envisioned the whole thing, what was going to happen. What was going to happen, being on the podium and the music and the sight and the sound, and building that memory in your brain over time strengthens that belief. It strengthens that that difference in goal setting between the average or everyday athlete and super high level athletes. Another thing I think that's different is they are. I noticed that people that are super high level are super good with people and communication in general. And, there's always somebody that's a little bit off, but generally speaking, their communication skills are super good because you need that. You need training partners and coaches, and you need to be able to interact
work with people.
and work with people. It's hard to be a jerk, really, and be a high level. Like sometimes on camera, you'll see a personality, but every time we backstage at the UFC, almost all those fighters are different and super respectful.
Yeah, it
and
seems like the
honorable.
highest level guys.
At that level, you got to be good with people.
Well, I was just talking about this with Caitlin, and this goes back to Shirk. There was never a problem. He was always like the nicest guy and be able to talk to you, and he would train with students, and he would let students give him an arm bars because he knew he could wail on them.
Yeah.
He didn't have the problem with, and so he didn't ever worry about, oh yeah, I'm just going with this white belt, I better show him how good I am. No, everybody knew. So he could talk to people, and he would have training partners, and he'd line them up, and he had it such that he would ask like, hey Andy, you gonna come drill with me tonight? Okay. And then he'd go over it without Andy knowing, Nat, you gonna be there drill night? Because he knew there was a good possibility one of them wasn't gonna show up.
Yeah.
And then he'd have the third workout where he had all the cables and the shots and the ground and pound if none of them showed up. So he'd look at the clock, 7:30, none of them show up, he'd start setting up the cables. And he never thought like, oh crap, my partners didn't show up. Nope, it was about, hey, it's time to train. But you know what? Most of the time, people wanted to be there around him because he was teaching them back and forth. It was always a very learning
Those training
experience.
sessions were just the best.
Because he was very, very easy to talk to. Almost all the fighters. It's the same even with Brock. All these people see this persona. No, when you're in the gym up there, when it's time to joke around, man, it's time to joke around. But when it's time to train, it is, you better be on point, you better be on time.
Yeah.
And it was just like, he goes, this is time. I don't have all the energy in the world to waste, so let's get it done. And then afterwards, it was
Yeah.
Let's go to the lake and jump in off the pontoon, and
Yeah.
it was crazy time.
Yeah. I mean, that kind of brings up another, dealing with people, but you're a product of the people you surround yourself with. So I think that another thing about high level athletes is they find the best training environment for them, and they surround themselves with the right kind of people. And if people are negative, if they people that are choosing the wrong attitude, people that are whining and complaining and moaning about all the possible bad things, they avoid them. Right? Yes or yes?
Yes, I mean
Absolutely.
I can guarantee that is one of my
reality.
that is one of my pet peeves, and everybody probably knows it. Man, if I see somebody who's lazy that's trying to say there's something, I'm like, I don't even want to work with the person. I'm like,
Well,
no, I'm not
nowadays
going to waste
it's
time.
everywhere.
I know, but you can pick and choose. You can say, listen, you're either going to be on a team or you're not. But I tell you, one of my coaches, gymnastics coach, who is a coach from Nina, he used to be so intense and he still was when I saw him, but now he was more. He would just aim his intent, and he said, "I go, man, how can you still coach with that much intensity?" I remember asking him that. He goes, "Yeah, because now I just coach to the listeners. If I got 15 girls on that team, I know that there's going to be 2 or 3 that are actually going to be something, and those are the 2 or 3 I coach to, and the rest, they're just on for the ride. Because if I invest my emotion to this person, I know that they're not giving everything." It's just sucking my energy out for this person that I know is going to do better. But it's not like I'm going to ignore them. But I know that, hey, I'm telling this to this person, but I know that one's going to hear it, and that one's going to hear it, and they're going to do. And so that's how he was able to maintain that intensity.
Yeah.
But they're still around. I mean, even those girls to be at that level, they still have to be pretty dang good, because they're competing all over the place. But there's those 2 or 3 or 4 that
They're truly
they're
invested.
truly invested mentally.
Yeah.
And so you end up gravitating towards those people. And it's the same thing with, I think, fighting. Yeah, you don't want to be around people that are, oh man, this is going to be so hard.
Oh, yeah. People
But
are
it's
going
just
to
like,
lift you up.
get
They'll
out of
bring
here.
you down.
You're lame.
Yeah.
Get away.
Yeah.
So you have to have a good set of people around you. And people that believe in you, and people that will show up because they want to be there.
Yeah,
Yes.
showing up, man. That's the biggest battle I think for a lot of people.
Man,
Getting people to show up. That was it's interesting because for me that was such a basic
Yeah.
I was gonna show up. Like in my
even
head,
if you didn't
I
want to be
even-
there, if it felt crappy, you showed up.
Even when I didn't want to be there, I wanted to be there.
Yeah.
I-
Because
Yeah.
you felt like, for me personally, I never wanted to let down who I was
that
training with.
too, you got commitments.
So you're driving, you're training, you're doing whatever, you're super tired, but in your mind you might have that negative thought that's like, oh, maybe I should just call. Nope, screw that. There's no way that's happening.
Yeah.
And you just override it and you just go. And once you get going, things seem to work themselves out. Definitely. But I
I think it's the coolest possible thing I could have been doing with my time. That's how I felt about it. Like
Yeah.
it's the best thing. So
Right.
it wasn't as hard to be motivated.
that constant drive and
Just so much
motivation
fun.
and,
So much fun.
you feed off the other guy too. All of a
Mhm.
sudden you feel his drive and this person's drive and it's like a big energy generating mechanism that just starts to build and build, and you look to your right, they're going, you look to your left, well, I got to keep going.
Right.
And that was so huge. And I remember at camps and stuff, David Leach and I'd say, okay, we're doing 5-10-5 or 10-5-10, whatever we're doing. Our goals would be the first one done every time.
Yeah.
And we just try to be faster than anybody and get it done
On the pads.
on the pads. No matter how painful it was, like, no way. I'm not gonna slow down. We're going full speed. Because that's the mentality everybody at the academy had at that time. Everybody was just pushing and grinding and driving and always there.
Yeah, I mean, I look at it like when you look at the people at the top, a lot of times it's that there's a lot of work that goes into that last little bit of performance that people just aren't willing to do. People are not willing to show up that much and put in that much time. And that's really what, in the end, separates everybody is that the elite people have the attitude and the motivation and the drive to put in that amount of work.
There's
Yeah,
nothing
mentally,
else that's going to
physically,
get in the
emotional.
way.
Yeah.
There's
I mean,
People don't do that.
I
They don't put that time in.
for me, like the mentality wise, I made this thing up in my head way long time ago. But I remember at the academy, I didn't care what was happening in my life. If I was able to get in my academy, how is that going to help me bring it inside? So it was like all my problems were in this backpack, and I'd set them right outside the door. When I went in, whatever was happening, it was forgotten. Right? I just train. Hey, if it's a bad enough problem, it'll be there anyways. And if it's a bad enough problem, you shouldn't be in the gym. You should be taking care of it. So you can get going. So it's not that bad if you can actually drive and then do your thing. And a lot of times, even though you still have that problem, by the time you get done training, you can think about it differently. You're looking at it. You're like, okay, got this done. And you have a better mind for it.
Yeah.
Because if you start bringing in stuff into your workouts, that starts to feed into the other guy. And it's just, you can feel when somebody's not having a good day.
Yeah.
And it's like, ugh, dude, you
Well,
gotta
I
pick
want
it up.
everybody to feel like that in here. When they get to the door, it's like
Yeah, train.
everything's cut off.
Yeah, it's time to train.
It's time to, it's like a refuge.
Yeah, the refuge for problems. And, all those things start to really add up. And when you do have a problem, because you've dealt with it differently, you have this mindset that it's like an opponent, or it's like something that you're going to train for, instead of, oh my gosh, this thing is going to overwhelm me. It's like, I can tell you this, when I got diagnosed with cancer, it was a relief to find out what it was, because there was finally something I could fight. Because when I was just sick and didn't know what was going on, that was the worst.
Mm.
And then finally I said, okay, well, it's cancer. It's like, okay, now it's something to fight. I know what I can go
Find
after.
out the name of your opponent.
Yeah, and that was a big thing, because that's how our whole life was about. So when that happened, it was just another battle that no way I was going to give up, because I can't let anybody down. I got to fight. I'm going to live. I have 2 kids. Everything was a fight to battle, and just, no way. I think
Cool.
that's
Well,
huge.
yeah. I mean, I think that about covers it. For today, and high level athletes, high level fighters. There you go.
Bottom line, people, you got to be a little obsessed. You got to be a little crazy. You got to be a little non-conformist if you're going to do anything of a high level. Because there's most of the people that aren't going to be there, and they're going to think you're weird. Why you're doing that? Why would you do that so hard? What are you getting out of it? So you got to have that obsession, that little bit of craziness about you that makes you different. All right? Don't fear that, and don't fear fatigue in the gym.
Yeah, you
Don't
gotta
fear
love
fatigue
it.
in the gym. Because, hey, fear fatigue when you're actually fighting. That's when it's a bummer. So, hey, don't fear fatigue in the gym. Push hard. Have fun. Love what you're doing. Things just happen to work out. Because even if you don't have any money, you still get to do what you love.
Mm-hmm.
So, there it is. All right, so, hey, guys, if you like what you hear, rate us on iTunes. That's what you want to see. All right? Go to the Twitters. Go to the Instagrams. I got Greg Nelson MMA. Got our Academy Facebook page. Check us out. Hey, we're having fun here. This is the 3rd one now. 3rd podcast. Are you kidding me? We've done that many?
Well, we've done 3. You've done 6.
Well, I mean, that's in other things, yeah. But here, it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Pretty neat to
Getting
talk and
really
just gab.
Getting it
But
going.
if you like what you hear, rate us on iTunes. Also, if you want to hear us talk about anything, send us something. We'll jabber about it.
Yeah. Twitter at Greg Nelson MMA. Facebook is Minnesota Martial Arts Academy. And yeah, see you next time.
All right, train hard, have fun.